Who will take the pressure off of David Johnson in 2018? Should you draft Michael Crabtree ahead of Amari Cooper next year? And what's the key to winning the $100,000 grand prize in the world-famous FFPC Playoff Challenge? Plus, the 2017 FFPC Pros vs. Joes overall champion Mike Beers hangs out with us to break down his winning team, as well as who he has on his Playoff Challenge team with the FFPC. We've got a great show for you. Dave Gerzak is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now listening to the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. It's the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for football analysis from the best fantasy players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak.
Happy New Year, Rob. Greetings and salutations to all of you Balkaholics and Gerzakinetics. Welcome to the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com. I am, of course, your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman, and my co-host is indeed the patron saint of fantasy football. Welcome, Dizzle. It is Dave Gerzak, the Dave Gerzak.
It's the Dave Gerzak Show?
It is the Dave Gerzak Show. Coming up on tonight's Dave Gerzak Show, should you be floating dynasty offers for Andrew Luck? What can Saquon Barkley do for you? And Mike Beers gives his thoughts on a potential Boffo year for Marcus Mariota this fall, and he tells us how he was able to win the overall title in the 2017 Pros vs. Joes competition. Shout out to the chat room right now. Feel free to post any questions you might have in there. If you want to connect with us on Twitter, please do so at HSFF Hour, at Eric Balkman, at David Gerzak. Mike is on Twitter at Beerswater. You can also post on our Facebook page at facebook.com/HSFF Hour. If you want to chime in and talk with us, give us a call at 347-426-3682. That's 347-GAME-OVA. You can also email the show at the inbox, highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. If you have any questions for us, now is the time to send them. Actually, earlier was the time to send them, but we'll still try to get them to them now. We have chat room questions, tweets, and emails coming up later on in the show, but Dave and I will be revealing, if we could play in the FFPC Playoff Challenge, what our lineups would be like. So I don't know how many emails we're going to be able to squeeze in, but we will do our best. A couple of notes up to start at the top of the show tonight. The 2017-18 world-famous FFPC Playoff Challenge live. We have, Dave, what was the last count that we were at? 458 teams left to go. That's out of 3,500 teams.
456.
456. Wow. This is the power of the HSFF Hour bump, apparently, on the show tonight. So, yeah, definitely get in on that tonight. It'll probably sell out. What do you think, Dave? Sometime tomorrow morning, I would imagine?
Maybe more like around noonish.
Noonish. So get in the morning or tonight. I would just get in tonight. That way you're not going to be locked out.
You don't pick your team out. If you're going to get in, I would just get in, get the team, and then you can pick it tomorrow at your convenience.
And while you're hanging out at myffpc.com, go ahead and click on that Dynasty tab, and you're going to see a bunch of orphan teams that are looking for a good home. There. Picks are listed. Players are listed. Manufacturer's suggested retail price also listed. Some of them have discounts. Some of them do not. So definitely check that out. myffpc.com/dynasty. Let's get into tonight's show, ladies and gentlemen. I want to bring in our guest this evening. He's been playing fantasy football for more than 15 years and has been heavily involved in best ball leagues, both as a player and as an analyst since 2014, contributing articles and data to rotoviz.com and rotogrinders.com. He spent 8 years as an investment analyst before leaving the finance industry to focus on data science and technology. Well, we've all been there. And, of course, he is now the reigning FFPC Pros vs. Joes champion. We follow him on Twitter at Beerswater. Please welcome into the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour your Pros vs. Joes champion, Mr. Mike Beers. Mike, thanks so much for hanging out with us tonight, man.
Hey, thank you for having me. This is great. Excited to have a chance to talk about the playoffs and what happened this year. It's been a good run.
Yeah. You definitely did. You really everywhere. I mean, anybody who was following you on Twitter saw a lot of great analysis, best ball advice that paid off for a lot of people this year. So congrats to you, and congrats on your followers on that. It's a simple follow. You just click the follow button, and you get great best ball advice from Mike Pierce.
About 10 minutes ago.
That's terrible.
Well, I saw the link in your little.
Oh, and then that's when you follow.
I'm like, I gotta get my act together.
Following you, man. Well, now you're
gonna learn a lot. Next year will be even better.
There you go. Well, listen, we all know that you are with Roto Grinders, RotoViz, contributing a lot of great stuff there. Can you tell us, Mike, about the sort of specific work that you do for those two sites and what you're contributing to them?
Sure. I've written several articles for both websites over the past couple of years, and it focused on best ball almost exclusively. So I take a very data-centric look at it, looking at the win rates of particular players over the past couple of years in best ball leagues, which picks were the best picks. And also roster construction. Roster construction has been a really big thing for me. So, in terms of how many quarterbacks you want to roster, how many running backs, how many wide receivers, tight ends, et cetera. And I take a very, again, like I said, data-heavy, sort of systematic approach to it. One of the articles I did for RotoViz sort of early last year was like an optimization of the draft. It was a simulation using all the possible picks and that teams could have made last year, trying to find the optimal roster construction. I've spent probably more time than is healthy thinking about the best way to build a roster. But it's helped myself and more importantly for me, a lot of the people who actually read my articles win some of these leagues. So it's been great.
So speaking of winning, let's talk about your awesome team.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about one of my favorite players, Tyreek Hill. You got him in the 504 pick. According to my little stats here in one of my dynasty leagues, he was the number 5 wide receiver this year.
Oh, was it really?
That's what it says on my, weeks 1 through 16, Balky. Does that sound right?
No, it doesn't. But I guess.
What the hell he is?
All right.
How he is.
I'm rolling with it.
Anyway, he's a 504 pick. 9 receivers went off the board in the 5th round, and I'm sure none of them finished ahead of Tyreek.
Probably not.
Fitz might have. Fitz was number 3 overall. Anyway.
Fitz might have been off the board at that point, though.
So why was Hill the best pick in that round for you?
So the thing about Hill is this is sort of a theme as I draft. Is he was clearly going to be the number 1 wide receiver on his team. You could argue whether or not he'd be the number 1 receiver, overall with Kelsey on the roster. But with Macklin leaving town, I didn't have any concerns. Early in the offseason, I had concerns about Tyreek because he was so efficient at the end of the year before. It was, people were saying there's no way he can keep this up. And I kind of agreed. But then once Macklin was gone, it kind of didn't matter to me anymore. He just was going to get enough targets, a guy that is a threat to take it to the house on every play. You feed him that much. I really liked him even after his price in these drafts went up with the Macklin news. And if you look at, I don't know if you guys still have the draft board from my draft, but 7 of those or 6 of those wide receivers went after Tyreek. And I took him ahead of all those guys because they were either clearly the number 2 or in the case of Crabtree, debatably the number 1 or number 2 wide receiver on their team. And that's just, I didn't think they were going to get that kind of volume. I want that kind of alpha dog wide receiver if I have the choice. And it worked out.
Mike,
he got fed. Yep. No, go ahead.
I'm kind of curious. I'm kind of curious because it obviously did work out. Dave Gerzak, was definitely on the Tyreek Hill bandwagon. And Dave, you were at the end of last season. You were trading for him in a bunch of dynasty leagues too.
Yes, I got him in either 3 or 4 leagues.
Yeah, I mean,
out of the 8 that I have.
So you were a big fan of him, Mike. I'm curious, and I know you probably don't have all your facts and figures in front of you, but ballpark it. Did you imagine that you did have a lot of shares of Tyreek Hill last year? Because based on this analysis, based on where you got him in this draft, I got to believe that this had to be a recurring theme for you.
Yeah, no, he certainly was among my higher owned wide receivers. I tend to, because he got a little more expensive, creeping into the fourth round toward the end of the off season. Those tend not to be my highest owned players. Where I get more concentrated is sort of in the teams, because I don't like to really concentrate my risk in those more expensive areas. But among guys in that range of fourth, fifth, sixth round, I was buying him up. Like I said, I was avoiding him at first because of my concerns about the volume and the efficiency. But it was a weird case where a player got more expensive over the offseason, and I started buying him more. Usually it's the other way around. But the opportunity just seemed too good there.
Talking with Mike Beers. You can follow him on Twitter at BeersWater. He is the 2017 FFPC Pros vs. Joe's overall champ, winning a free FFPC main event team for his efforts in 2018.
What other bonus little thingies were there with first place? Do you remember?
Do we have other bonus thingies?
Mike, were there? Yeah, people were throwing in crap left and right usually for whoever wins this thing. What else did you get? Like, a plush toy or something from Football Guys or what?
Well, I got a few tweets mentioning my name, and I'm
nice.
on this show. So what more could I ask for? Right?
Yeah, can't put a price on that, Dave.
No, that's a good
that's
point.
Simply priceless.
Yeah.
I want to get back into this draft, Mike, and specifically the Saints that you went back-to-back with in the 6th and 7th round. What can you tell us about the thought process behind grabbing Mark Ingram, who was ostensibly the Saints starting running back at the time of this draft, and then immediately in the 7th round you grab his quarterback Drew Brees. Now this is more of a daily thing where you really don't see people pairing up starting quarterbacks and starting running backs. I'm curious, was it just value here that you decided that, okay, Ingram's still out here in the 6th, I got to grab him. Oh, my God, Drew Brees is still out here in the 7th, I got to grab him too. Or was there did you foresee that these guys were going to have a big season this year?
Well, first of all, I appreciate that you left off the fact that I actually drafted 3 consecutive Saints. After taking Drew Brees, I took Coby Fleener, which was one of the worst picks of my draft. But no, it was not a conscious decision to stack up the Saints there. It really was about value. I mean, Mark Ingram, talking about, most owned guys from last season, I was drafting him everywhere. Kind of a theme for me that I noticed in this draft in particular is I like these guys. I like the discounted kind of 1A running backs on their teams. Ingram's price had fallen when Adrian Peterson signed. I avoid the expensive 1B and buy the 1A because in the event that he just holds on to his starting job and does what a starting running back does, they tend to return very good value. I did the same thing with DeMarco Murray in the 2nd round. That one didn't really work out. But guys like Matt Forte, Jonathan Stewart, these are starters who people expected to get overtaken at some point. And even as long as they get some of that starting volume that they had locked in at the beginning of the season, they tend to return enough value for me. And then going on to Drew Brees in the next round, that was really it had a lot to do with Andrew Luck being taken the pick right before me. At that point, my top tier was down to just Drew Brees. Russell Wilson was still on the board, but I wasn't as bullish on him as a lot of people were. And it just felt like if I don't love taking quarterbacks early, but by the time we were in the 7th round at the time, and if I'm going to take one of the early guys, I want it to be at the end of the tier. I want it to be, I want it to be one of those elite guys that's just not a reach for me. And Brees is so consistent. I mean, he had a bad year this year based on our expectations, but a bad year for him was, I think, quarterback 11. He was still a QB1, and that's why I felt comfortable taking only 2 quarterbacks in this draft. I just knew he would be there every week as long as he didn't get injured. So it was really about value. It wasn't about the Saints in particular. I took even another Saint a few rounds later, and again, it was just about the value.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I find, what was I going to say about Drew Brees? I mean, I just, like you said, having him year after year, it's always nice. He's consistent.
Yeah, he is.
Plus, I mean, in a DE-type format or a best ball format, as we're calling him now all the time,
Yeah.
you can't just wait on quarterback too long. Because if you wait till the 10th, 11th round, all of a sudden you get into these runs and someone will have like 2 or 3, and then you're stuck with like all crappy guys unless you got lucky and got Alex Smith really late. Is that kind of what you think about that, Mike?
I actually don't mind waiting on quarterback. I won't wait too long. Say 10th round, I'll probably grab my first guy, and I might be willing to wait a little bit longer, depending on whether a run has started, like you said. I don't want to be forced into a corner and being forced to pick after a run, but in that case, I'll definitely be taking 3 quarterbacks, right? I would never stop at 2 like I did here if I didn't have one of those top tier guys. But looking at our draft, guys like Kirk Cousins, so it was in the 11th round. I got Bradford, who I got, but I expected him to be a solid producer in the 13th round. Stacking together 3 guys all from that, sort of round 10 to 13 range is something I'm comfortable with. But I really don't like to spend a lot at quarterback because with the best ball format, you can build a very good quarterback score out of 3 kind of mediocre guys, usually.
Well, and that kind of brings me to my next question, actually, about philosophies or set rules to follow. Do you have any that you follow in best ball formats? Like I always draft X number of kickers, X number of defenses, or X number of tight ends?
I have a philosophy, but it's not rigid like that, and that is I'll move between 2 tight ends or 3 tight ends, 2 quarterbacks, 3 quarterbacks, just depending on how my draft is playing out. In this case, I ended up with Drew Brees, who, a lot of the time this year I wasn't drafting because I thought he was too expensive. But given that I drafted Drew Brees, I knew my philosophy is I got one of those top tier guys. I'm only taking 2 quarterbacks unless some crazy value falls and it just makes sense to get a third one. The same thing, when I'm thinking about running backs, where I draft them is going to determine how many I take. In this draft, I had, I think I had all 6 of my running backs, or 5. I had 5 running backs, all by the 10th round. So or 11th round. I had made that investment early. I didn't feel like I had to spend much more, if at all. I think I took 1 more later on the position. As long as 2 or 3 of those guys worked out, I felt like I was set at the position, and I was going to make up for the fact that I didn't use those picks at wide receiver or tight end by, drafting more of those guys later on. And I just look for that balance in each draft. I don't need, there are extremes, like I'm never drafting 4 quarterbacks. I'm never only drafting 1 quarterback, kind of guidelines like that. But within that, it's going to change from draft to draft.
2017 FFPC Pros versus Joe's overall champ, Mike Beers, joining the program tonight. And Mike, we always like to take a look, even though the playoffs are right around the corner here, we always like to take a look at next year as soon as we can after the fantasy regular season is over. Let's look at the Raiders passing situation. It looks like John Gruden is going to take over as their head coach beginning on Tuesday. And if Michael Crabtree does indeed remain a part of that football team next year, and that offense largely stays intact, which we, I think, believe that it will for the most part, Michael Crabtree versus Amari Cooper, who are you taking first in 2018 drafts?
Well, if it's anything like the last 2 years, it won't be a question of who I'm taking first. It's who I'm taking at all, and that will be Crabtree. Though I think things might change a little bit. It's just that, Crabtree, for the 3rd straight season, has outscored Amari Cooper. And Cooper has just been way too expensive the past 2 years. And I haven't drafted him at all. He was going in the 2nd or 3rd round. Crabtree, 2 or 3 rounds later. And at worst, I saw them as probably equivalent producers. And I think that's got to be – there's no reason not to think that will be the case next year. So, when I believe that Cooper is very talented. I believe he has a lot of upside. I just don't believe he should be priced 2 or 3 rounds ahead of Crabtree. And if he is again, then I'll do the same thing. I will be drafting Crabtree. I will not be drafting Cooper. I think, though, after 3 straight years, people are going to kind of catch on, especially with what a, sort of bummer of a year Cooper had. He's probably going to fall. They might flip-flop, and it could be that I'm not drafting either of them. And it could even swing the other way because I'm so much about the value as opposed to the specific player. If Cooper ends up being cheaper than Crabtree, I could start buying him up.
I need an idea what, we talk about this once in a while.
Yeah.
What the hell is Cooper's problem?
Right.
Do you know what's up?
We have no idea.
Usually you wait for the off-season news like, oh, Cooper was actually battling a, MCL issue or something. You just didn't know what it was until they announced it. But this has been 2 straight years where he's kind of not done even close to what he supposedly, given the hype, what he's supposed to be doing.
And honestly, just to piggyback on that, his rookie year was really good till the last 4 weeks of the season. His sophomore year was pretty good till the last 4 weeks of the season. His third year was awful except for like 4 quarters of action, of like 1 game. That was it.
Yeah.
And this is 3 years in a row now. He's been underwhelming.
What do you think, Mike?
I'm not sure what happened this year, to be honest. It surprised. I've never been an Amari Cooper truther or anything, but I expected more than what he did this year. The 2 years prior, though, kind of my explanation for that and the reason I wasn't drafting him coming into this year was that Carr just never looked to him in the red zone or the end zone. It was, I think last year, their tight
the Julio
ends,
syndrome.
Yeah, but it's even more extreme, I think. He just, like the tight ends, the combination of Michael Rivera and the other guy, I can't even remember his name, last year in 2016 got more end zone targets than Amari Cooper. And Crabtree, I mean, he's out there getting just as many as any other, competent wide receiver. And that translates to touchdowns. I mean, you don't score as many touchdowns if you're not getting targets in that area of the field. And I think that impacted Cooper's fantasy performance in 15 and 16. But this year, yeah, I'm kind of at a loss. I mean, I think he was banged up a little bit, but that doesn't explain, the first several weeks of the season. And, he finished a little stronger week 16 and 17, but it's really hard to know exactly what's going to carry over and what the problem was. I know he struggled a bit with drops, but I don't think that explains very much of it, and I'm not sure that's going to be a consistent thing. He's a talented guy for sure, so I feel like he can turn it around.
Makes sense. Bulky, I hate Crabtree. You want to know why?
Why is that?
He's on my Pirate Swag Dynasty team.
Oh, really?
Yes, and I don't start him very often. Once in a while I start him.
Yeah.
And as usual, this year he scores 3 touchdowns week 2 on my bench.
Yeah.
2 touchdowns week 15 on my bench. He got 17 targets week 15. Luckily I have Gurley on my team. I still won. I know you don't care about this, Mike, but I'm going to talk about it. And I still won and got to the finals and won the whole league. But Crabtree, be a little more consistent. I
used to be in that.
I used to be in that dynasty league.
Yeah, week 16 is 0.
Yeah, it was terrible. It was terrible.
I still didn't start him then.
I used to be in that dynasty league, Dave.
Yeah.
And I left it right after I won the title.
What kind of a
Hold on. Let me get to the point.
Mike, we're about to argue.
Let me get to the point.
You're the worst.
You know who one of my starting receivers was?
Crabtree.
Crabtree. I'm glad to know that he ended up in good hands.
Dude, you were a total dick who quit the league after being the champion.
I figured that was
unbelievable.
I was
unbelievable.
Listen.
I can't believe I'm still doing this
show. Listen. Here's the thing.
You do this.
People were like, I was like, man, if I ever want to get out of this league, now's the time to do it because this team is never going to be as strong as it was now. And I don't know what happened. I think the guy who took over the team ended up destroying the team.
I'm sure he did. He couldn't put together the massive, awesome. Anyway,
no, he couldn't.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
The Titans will once again have a lot of weapons at their disposal in 2018. Unbelievable. Including Derrick Henry, Corey Davis, Rashard Matthews. Does Matthews have 2 T's with this Matthews?
You might have 2 T's. I'm not sure.
I'm seeing the spelling of the other man. Tywan Taylor and Delaney Walker and our buddy Jonnu Smith.
Yeah, Jonnu Smith.
Maybe he'll show up. Is Marcus Mariota in for a big bounce back season?
You know, this is tough for me because I really bought in this past season. I had a lot of exposure to Mariota, and for that exact reason, he just has so many weapons, it seemed like, and it just didn't happen. It was really disappointing. And the problem is, for next year, I'm not sure exactly what's going to be different. I mean, I think it has to be a coaching change or a philosophy change. Just the talent level of the offense, it wasn't enough this year. And if they don't change the way they play, I don't know how it's going to be enough next year to really push them up another tier. You know, especially, I mean, they made the playoffs this year. I mean, you know, God forbid they win a game and manage to upset Kansas City. I mean, maybe they don't change anything about what they're doing. That would be the worst case scenario, I think. I mean, all this talent, and they're not going to, you know, sort of turn them loose and get that production. I'm probably not going to be buying him unless something weird happens in the playoffs that really changes my mind next year. I'm going to kind of have to see it to believe it at this point. I mean, it was just too perfect this year, and it didn't happen.
Mike Beers, the 2017 FFPC Pros vs. Joe's champ, on the show tonight. Follow him on Twitter at BeersWater. There's a couple of emails that I want to get to for you that came in for you this week, Mike, from some listeners. First one's from Dennis in Reno, Nevada. He writes, "Hi, Mike. Congrats on the PVJ title. Did you find yourself going away from any of your pre-draft strategy because of what other drafters were doing and selecting their players? Thanks, and good luck in the main in 18. That is Dennis in Reno, Nevada. Thank you for the email, Dennis. That's a good question, too, Mike, because I think that everybody has a set strategy, kind of know what they want to do going in, and then it's a different story sometimes when you're on the clock. Did you find yourself switching anything up mid-draft because of how the draft was flowing?
You know, not really, but mostly because I didn't really have that set strategy going in. It was really a sort of read and react philosophy that I had. You know, one thing, or you know, a change I made was I thought I would be taking tight ends a little bit earlier than I did, given the format, the premium scoring, and they were kind of flying off the board. So I decided to wait and grab the value for guys like Tyreek and, you know, Alshon Jeffrey in the 4th and 5th, Ingram in the 6th, and I ended up with a pretty weak tight end core. It was like just good enough to float me through, but you know, things like that. I mean, I mentioned earlier, I took Drew Brees because of the way the draft fell. I mean, he just happened to be right there at the end of the tier in the 7th round. It didn't it didn't change anything about the way I played, but it definitely did dictate who ended up on my roster.
You know, that seems like a typical kind of thing that happens with teams that do well, is that they let a bunch of other people go crazy on tight end, and they just kind of, they get a guy here, get a guy there, and they just kind of, like you said, kind of skate by. But the rest of their team is awesome because they didn't overcompensate for tight end. Like the guys will take a tight end in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round all in a row. You know what? We're never interviewing those guys on the show in January.
Yeah, that's pretty rare. And I'll say this too, like not only that, it's fine to let everybody have their fun with the tight ends and whatever positions, you know, that they want to go crazy at. But the key is to also not get shut out. And I've seen that before too, where people have, especially in Pros versus Joes, where people have taken the attitude, people are going to overdraft tight ends, they're going to go crazy, I'm not going to be one of those guys going crazy. And that's fine, but you still got to, I mean, you can't just end up with, like, you know, the 15th tight end off the board as your number one. Like, you still got to get in a little bit. You have to make an appearance at the party, Dave. Say hello to the host, have a glass of wine, get out of there. You know, that's pretty much what it is. And I think that's definitely a successful strategy to do as well. One more email here for you, Mike. This is from Jim in New York City. Hey, Beers, do you see Devontae Parker being a post-hype sleeper next year now that he gets his real quarterback throwing into again? I can't imagine he'll be flying up draft boards like he was in 2017. What? Tannehill, yeah. Oh.
His post-hype sleeper?
Well, no, this is Devontae Parker. This wouldn't be Tannehill.
No, I'm talking about
Parker?
He's the consistent underperformer.
Well, remember, but he wasn't drafted as high anywhere in any year as he was last year. Last year was like really the highest he went.
Yeah, everyone was putting that on him that he was breaking out.
Yeah, totally. So what about him in 2018, Mike? Do you have any thoughts on Parker as far as – because I think he could represent a pretty decent value because he's going to slip.
Yeah, I mean, I think he is likely to slip. I'm not sure I buy the idea that he's getting, his real quarterback back. Tannehill he's all right. I don't have a real problem with him. I think he's just an okay quarterback. I actually thought Cutler was going to be an upgrade for Parker specifically. I mean, I kind of bought in toward the end of the off season last year. Finally started drafting Parker because I was avoiding him up until that move. And, because the kind of guy who locks on to a receiver, I thought he would be, because he had been in the past. And, the similarities a lot of people were bringing up between Parker and Alshon Jeffrey kind of made sense to me. And, I thought he would get more attention. I thought he would do something with it. And he kind of disappointed. It was still kind of a weird year. I mean, Cutler, for one, is just not very good anymore. Or you could argue whether he ever was. And, there were some injuries. Matt Moore is getting involved. But I think I'm not going to be buying. It's another thing like Mariota where I need a kind of a show me season, and I've needed one for him for a couple of years now. I didn't buy in the year before when he was his rookie year. People were talking about him a lot, and I need to see some more consistent production before I'm really going to aggressively add him to my teams, especially after he let me down in what I thought was going to be a good environment this year.
All right. Well, instead of talking about sucky teams like the Dolphins, let's talk about the teams in the playoffs, in the world-famous playoff challenge. Now, don't give away your entire roster.
Right.
Because Balky and I will steal it.
Totally.
Although we can't even play, so who cares?
No, but we'd still steal it.
Give us some insight on a couple of players who made their way onto your roster. I'm interested a little bit in Tyreek Hill and Kelsey, unless there's the Kareem Hunt, in consideration as well.
Yeah, so I should preface this with I don't think I'm very good at this contest. I've been in it a couple of times before, but the Kelsey and Tyreek. I actually wanted to go with Hunt because it kind of felt like from putting it in DFS terms, this is kind of like a GPP. Like, I feel like less people are going to be on Hunt than Tyreek or Kelsey. I feel even more strongly from that perspective that I don't want Gronk because I think everybody's going to have Gronk, and that led me to Kelsey. I don't think there are any better options at tight end, which took Hunt off the table. So I'm giving away some of my picks. I'll have Kelsey on my roster. I think the really interesting question is who to put at quarterback.
I agree.
Because I don't feel like I feel like several teams could make it to the Super Bowl and win, so end up playing a bunch of games. And that's you want exposure to the teams that are going to play a bunch of games and not have their quarterback be their highest scorer, which makes it pretty tricky, right? I mean, typically quarterbacks, are going to score the most points out of the positions, but, I could easily see, if the Rams made it to the Super Bowl, Gurley would be the higher scorer than Goff. The same thing with the Steelers, with more than half these teams. So it's made it kind of tricky. I think I'm going to go a little more contrarian there. And probably end up not with one of the most popular names.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool. He's right, though, that a lot of times these other skill players, like Gronk over Brady, that makes sense, because Gronk could outscore Brady. And a lot of these running backs and receivers are so good that they could outscore their quarterbacks consistently.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of sharks out there with Kenny Britt, as long as he's on the active roster. That'll be their Patriot. Just go uber contrarian. And Britt will be bringing home the goal. You never do. Sometimes you do, though.
Edelman?
Sometimes you do know. Edelman, Randy Moss, perhaps. Sure. You never know what could happen.
Hey, Moss can make the Hall of Fame this year.
That's true. Mike Beers has been our guest tonight. Mike, last question before we let you get out of here. Obviously, we're following you on Twitter at BeersWater, and congrats on the Pros vs. Joe's title. Is there anything that you're currently working on for RotoViz, Roto Grinders that you can preview and give the listeners a little bit of a taste of tonight?
Well, we're getting right into the beginning of, the best ball off-season sort of content period. So I don't have anything in the pipeline specifically, but I'm definitely going to be cranking out pretty soon some stuff on roster construction and player win rates. I always look at that sort of once the season is wrapped up, and summarizing what 2017 looked like, what worked, what didn't. And you'll probably see some of that on RotoViz before I start picking up the more regular articles on Roto Grinders later in the off season. So keep an eye out for that, within the next month or so.
Oh, we definitely will. We're checking out both those sites. Obviously, we'll check out your Twitter feed as well for all the great content you post there. I thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. I really appreciate it. Congrats on the main event team upcoming this year, so that'll be fun for you to draft that team. Congrats on the 2017.
Feel free to come out to Vegas.
Yeah, that'd be great too. Congrats on the 2017 Pros versus Joe's title, and good luck defending that in 2018. I have a sneaking suspicion, Dave, that Darren Armani is going to have Mike Beers back for the Pros vs. Joe's Challenge in 2018.
You might get an invite.
You might get an invite. Thanks so much, man. This has been a lot of fun. We'll talk again real soon.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me. This has been great. Appreciate it, guys.
Mike Beers at Beerswater on Twitter. My RotoViz colleague, really, Dave. my colleague at RotoViz. We run into each other at the water cooler every now and then.
Yeah, at the office.
Had lunch at the break room the other day.
I mean, you're heading to the recording studio to do your really fantastic work, the slowdown.
Well, that's the thing. Lowdown. See, we're in between seasons right now. So,
I heard you had your finale.
Yeah, we had the season finale, and now I won't be
do you have a cliffhanger heading into season 3
Yes,
now?
the cliffhanger is, will we get renewed? That was the cliffhanger. You missed it last week on the show. I actually revealed that we have been renewed, or the High Stakes Lowdown has been renewed for season 3, so you can expect 2018
Thank goodness.
chock full of great high stakes podcasts over at rotoviz.com, and I won't eat the tuna sandwich in the break room fridge that says beers on it. So there's that as well.
I really enjoy the articles. Like, this is the time of year when I usually check out RotoViz more than anything is for their upcoming draft articles. The crappy guys no one's talking about.
Yeah, I've already been. Anthony Amico had some good stuff on RotoViz the other day.
Yeah.
Yep, I checked that out. So this is always, honestly, we have a lot of partnerships. There's a lot of great sites out there, but I will say this about RotoViz. When I really get deep into dynasty stuff, they're usually the first website I'll go to and okay, I really got to check out everything.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Mention this. Is there any articles about this particular player?
And Football Guys, obviously, at Draft Sharks, there's a lot of great stuff on there as well. But RotoViz, for whatever reason, I always feel like I'm going to learn something new, within 30 seconds of hitting that website. So that's why I like it.
Hey, speaking of deep, can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
What's your opinion on
phrasing?
What's your opinion on the wide receiver number 198 this year? He was a rookie. John Ross. What do you think?
Yeah.
He scored 1.2 fantasy points.
Yeah, it was not good.
What's his trade value now? A late third?
Not good. And he was a first-round pick.
They're talking about moving him to corner. Is that right?
Yeah, that's really bad. What's frustrating is I picked him in one league, and you know who I could have had in that league?
I don't even know if I want
Kareem Hunt. Could have had Alvin Kamara.
I probably could have too.
Could have had Alvin Kamara in that league.
I drafted him in one league as well.
So frustrating. Just really. Cooper Kupp, for God's sake. I could have had him.
I got Cooper Kupp in a lot of leagues anyway.
I mean, I would.
Regardless. You
would obviously trade John Ross straight up for Cooper Kupp right now.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to think what you would.
Cooper Kupp finished as I think WR 24 this year.
If we had a Carrington redraft dynasty, which is 4 rounds, 12 teams, so 48 picks, does John Ross get drafted?
In rookie?
Yeah. If we redrafted the rookie class.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think you would either. That's just
you
nuts
can find
to
somebody
me.
else.
Yeah.
The D.D. Westbrooks of the world would be definitely moving up.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So a lot of people, the chat room and social media blowing up during that interview saying, what's this playoff challenge that you guys keep talking about? What is going on with this?
Please.
One guy's
going to sell it anyway. You don't need to give a promotion on it.
One guy said, was this the thing that they did last year? And I said, you know what I say to that? It's back. The world-famous FFPC Playoff Challenge is live. You can register your teams today at myffpc.com. Compete for a $100,000 grand prize in a $600,000 prize pool, paying all the way down to 550th place. at a cost of only $200 per team. All you need to do is pick an FFPC roster of 10 players, choosing only one player per team in the playoffs. No roster management required, and we've added more than $120,000 to the prize pool this season, as well as 150 more teams being paid out than in 2016. Don't delay. Sign up today for the world-famous FFPC Playoff Challenge at myffpc.com. Go ahead.
Back to John Ross.
Get it out. Yep.
You know that John Ross's 1.2 fantasy points this year
Was on a rush.
It was a 12-yard rush, in which he lost a fumble.
That I did not know. I did not know he fumbled on that.
He had
Marvin Lewis still has him in the doghouse.
He had 2 total targets on the year.
Has not gotten
one 12-yard rush that he fumbled.
That's bad.
Anyway.
And you know what? Tyler Boyd actually stepped up towards week 17, who cares? But he actually looked fairly decent the last couple of weeks.
You know, Boyd was he was like a second-round pick,
yeah.
right? You know, that was weird how they just tossed him away.
Yeah.
And he was actually a guy who was productive in college up until when he came out. So I thought he might break out.
He could, and I thought there was an off-field thing with him that happened after he got drafted that maybe soured the Bengals a little bit. I could be wrong on that. I'm just spreading rumors now on the show.
Yeah, the Bengals don't want to have character issues.
No. I mean, that's about as squeaky clean as you get as for an NFL organization.
By the way, the funniest tweet I saw this week was it was a blurry Jeff Fisher.
Yeah.
And it was another picture showing glasses being wiped off, and then it was a clear picture of Marvin Lewis.
That's funny.
That was really great.
That is really good.
I loved it.
Oh, it's great. Who tweeted that? Do you know?
I forgot. I retweeted it, I think.
Thanks to Football Guys, RotoPass, RotoWorld, and Rob for tonight's rundown. Carson Palmer, Dave, hung it up on Tuesday after 15 years in the NFL, according to Ian Rappaport from the NFL Network.
So the stock market was up like 30%, and he's rich.
Shortly before this, Bruce Arians retired from coaching. So now you have no Carson Palmer, no Bruce Arians, and I'm just curious how this is going to work with Larry Fitzgerald, Dave. 109. Well, let's not get into Fitz yet. Let's get into Fitz in a little bit. No, I take that back. Let's get into Fitz now.
And we'll talk Arians. I have an Arians stat for you.
Okay, we'll get into it. So Arians retires. Carson Palmer retires. Larry Fitzgerald, 109 catches this past year. He topped 100 catches for the third straight year. He signed a 2-year contract extension last year. He's on the books for $16 million in 2018 with zero in dead money.
Unbelievable.
Okay, so what are you doing with Fitzgerald in Dynasty right now? What?
Keeping him.
No. You don't have him. What would you give up to get him? Because he might retire with this Arians Palmer news.
Did he say I might retire?
He said he hasn't made a decision on 2018 yet.
I'd for sure give up a third.
I would too. Third rounds are just throwaways.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know if I'd give up a second. If it was an early, anywhere to the 209, I probably would keep it.
But if
I was a playoff team that really needed to win, though, I might
take a shot. Yeah. Okay, I can see that.
At 212.
Here's the other interesting thing. How does this affect David Johnson coming off the wrist injury?
I don't know.
The cupboard is bare.
We don't even know what's going on.
That's fine that we don't know what's going on, because what possible improvements is this? I can't imagine that the situation David Johnson will be coming into in 2018 will be better than the one he had going for him in 2017.
Probably not. So yeah, I mean,
is he still a first-round pick right now?
Yes.
Okay. Fantasy Pros actually came out with like an early top 10, and I think it was. Maybe it was PPR. I can't remember, but I think they had David Johnson as the 106.
Well, they're putting out content now? I thought they just aggregated everybody else's.
Well, this is an aggregation of a bunch of great fantasy analysts.
I find that to be an abomination.
That's where it's
an aggregation is an abomination if you're trying to make that a fantasy analysis.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying that this content was on Fantasy Pros, and it was made by pros in the fantasy industry. And that's where it okay. So it came out. David Johnson's the 106. Right. Does that seem about right to you? I don't know, man. I don't think I could spend a mid-first round pick on a guy coming into something like this. I don't know what. Okay, I'll tell you this. They get like some sort of like decent coach, like a younger coach with an offensive mind, and maybe they get Kirk Cousins or somebody like that to come to Arizona. Then things are looking up. But right now, it's not great. I
mean, you forget this player had a 400-plus point fantasy year.
It was crazy.
The year before.
Yep.
That's after Gurley's rocking 90 points in weeks 15 and 16. Johnson still scoring by like around 90 points.
Right.
I mean,
Gurley had his share of dumpers this year too.
Dumpers.
Yeah, he wasn't. He was.
What they call that game?
I'm doing all these FFPC recaps. On how these teams won these leagues. The Terminator Super Bracket. Varsity is coming out tomorrow. The auction, all this stuff. And I feel like every single person, like, they were in Week 16. They won the title with, you guessed it, Todd Gurley's on every single one of these teams.
Wait till you do that 77s recap that you and Meyer were talking.
Not going to happen. That is not going to happen.
Right,
I will not be recapping any 77s in the FFPC email.
Here's a stat for you. I mean, I might have already blown the lead here on this, but right. Virginia Tech single-season rushing touchdowns by quarterback.
Michael Vick.
Michael Vick is numbers 2 and 3.
Tyrod Taylor
is number 4.
Marcus Vick.
Number 1.
Hold on, don't tell me.
All right.
God, was it a quarterback?
Yeah, it's a quarterback. He's a single-season rushing touchdowns by quarterback. Tyrod Taylor had 7. Vick had 8 in 2000. Had 9 in 1999, and this player had 11.
Oh, man. And he plays in the NFL right now.
No, he's not playing right now.
Oh, he's not playing. Is he retired?
Yeah, he's retired. We've spoken about him this evening. In the last 5 minutes. And he no longer has a job. Because he just quit. Bruce
Arians. Shut up.
Yes. 1974, he had 11 rushing touchdowns, beating Michael Vick and Tyrod Taylor. And look at him now. He's fat.
How many passes did he attempt in his career, though?
I don't know, man.
Probably like 5.
That's crazy.
They probably had the Army offense back then where they just rushed it every time.
That was the Veer.
I always thought Bruce Arians was more of a pocket passer. Grip it and sling it. Arians does like that downfield passing attack stuff.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy, right?
Okay, so basically I never would have guessed that.
We spoke about
was that your Arians comment?
That was my Bruce Arians.
All right, let's move on then. And because we're
good content.
running, it's great content. Not as good as this is going to be. Can't wait for this. Andrew Luck.
Here we go.
Quote, will be back with a fierce fire in his eyes in 2018, according to Jim Irsay. This is a quote from Zach Kiefer's article from the Indianapolis Star.
You know what that sounds like?
And no.
It sounds a little bit like a Trump tweet. He's like he's.
A little bit.
Like he's lying. He's over faking it.
That could be. Andrew Luck has been in Europe.
Be never better.
Rehabbing his shoulder. It's never good when you have to go overseas to rehab.
Heading to Indonesia next.
Yeah, got it. He's going to do some surfing in Bali. Luck would need another procedure on the injury. Was the scuttlebutt earlier? It does not sound like he is going to have that done. What are you doing? I mean, is he a buy in Dynasty right now? If you could get him for like a second-round pick, would you do it?
I hate to be like, I would not. I'm still on the negative on Andrew Luck. I think he has a potentially career-ending type injury. And now think about what a 2018 second is going to yield you, Balky. That's one of these top quarterbacks that are going to be drafted in the top 10 this year coming out.
Or maybe you could get Jimmy Garoppolo for a second-round rookie pick.
There you go. We were already talking about that. That totally makes sense. Garoppolo, he was just a waiver pickup for all these guys. They'll have like Deshaun Watson, or they'll have like Cam, or they'll have Russell Wilson, or whoever. And they don't need Garoppolo. They may like him, but I mean, if you're, especially when it gets close to the draft, offer up that second, you got Garoppolo.
Yeah, I might have to do that, especially because I have one quarterback in Carrington, and it's Roethlisberger, who allegedly might hang him up too. So I could literally go into the rookie draft season with no quarterback unless I make a deal. We'll have to see what happens. Speaking of rookie drafts, Saquon Barkley, Penn State University, announced on New Year's Eve that he will declare for the 2018 NFL Draft, according to a report on ESPN.com.
He's got a good running back name.
5'11", 230, size, power, strength, speed. He's got it all. Getting comps to David Johnson. Actually, he could be getting into a more fortunate situation than David Johnson, depending upon where he's drafted.
Or worse.
I never know when I can start talking to you about rookies, because sometimes I talk to you about these guys during the college season, and who are going to be like first-round picks in the NFL draft, and be like, who does he play for? What position is he?
I don't watch college football.
I know you don't, and that's fine.
I don't watch it like on a regular. I mean, why would I waste all my time watching it just to scout out some guy who may or may not get?
When you could wait a year and watch him on Sundays.
Well, when I could wait 6 months and watch all the YouTube and draft breakdown videos.
True. So what do you know about Barkley so far? A lot or a little?
It's supposed to be fantastic.
So not a lot.
Not a lot, but I mean, I do know that he's been super productive. He's got the perfect size and speed, it seems like, even with 4.4s.
Yeah.
He's a great receiving back. I think he's one of 18 players that has had a 150-yard rushing and a 50-yard receiving game. And he had that twice last year, and only 18 people have done that since, who knows.
So you do know a lot about him.
Well, I read some dumb tweet.
Okay.
It doesn't matter that much. But, I mean, actually, there was also a Twitter survey, a Twitter poll, actually, of David Johnson versus the 101, which is obviously Saquon Barkley. And Johnson did win, actually, in the poll.
Interesting. Okay.
It was a few, it was number 400 votes.
Yeah.
It was pretty fairly close.
Twitter normally it's more sensationalistic. So those Twitter polls, I'd imagine the 101 would win. That's telling that David Johnson won out on that.
For Dynasty.
Right, I get it. Yeah, I know it. I'm just saying, I think Saquon Barkley is the more sensationalistic choice in that poll.
Well, that's a good point, actually.
So here's the other thing I'll tell you. Do you know who Lamar Jackson is?
Oh, yeah, I do. I've heard this. Go ahead. There's a stat about him.
He has more career rushing touchdowns and rushing yards than Saquon Barkley. They both played 3 years. Isn't that crazy?
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, that's nuts. And Jackson, well, I guess Jackson could conceivably be going the first round. We'll have to see. You brought him up already, Dave, and this will be the final point before we get into our playoff challenge lineups. But I do want to mention this. This is a report from Sarah Barshup on ESPN.com. Deshaun Watson, according to head coach Bill O'Brien, actually ahead of schedule in his recovery from tearing his ACL. He might be able to take part in OTAs when it comes to be that time of the spring. Watson had surgery back in early November. Boy, it does not seem that long ago, but yeah, it was, to repair the injury. So he might, OTAs, that's kind of aggressive, and obviously this is the future of the franchise, and this is a guy that you want to kind of treat with kid gloves, but you look at Watson. I was so I wasn't rejoicing about the injury, but I felt like the silver lining of his injury was that he was going to be depressed in drafts in 2018. And if he's recovering this fast, I don't know if that's going to be the case. I think Watson might end up going a little bit too high for me with the hype that's going to be surrounding him.
In redraft?
In redraft, yeah.
I think redraft quarterbacks are going to, it's like every year. Quarterbacks are going to be cheap.
Watson was on an historic pace for those 5 or 6 weeks that he played.
He won't go that crazy high because people will still worry about the ACL.
How many ballpark it right now? How many quarterbacks go in front of him?
I don't know, a dozen.
Oh, boy, I don't think it's gonna be that many.
Oh, yeah, start listing them off. Wilson.
I don't know if we should be getting into this.
All right, maybe not, but regardless, a lot. What about Garoppolo? So you go ahead of him?
Who would you rather have next year?
Cousins. Cousins ends up?
I'd rather have Watson over Cousins and Garoppolo. I'll tell you that right now.
Okay. All right. That's fine. Whatever.
Okay. All right.
The thing is,
we'll flesh this out in the offseason.
Yeah, you can draft Watson. There's always some safe, knob you can pick up too in case you're worried about that.
Andy Dalton.
Yeah. He's a safe knob.
Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen.
Ha about Dalton, but he probably finished like QB 15 or something. I did not look.
No, I listen. I had him on that. I told this story on the show where I only had Dalton and Carson Palmer as my quarterbacks, and I ran out of.
All right, he was 19.
But I ran out of bidding bucks, and then I had to roll with Dalton for the rest of the season after Palmer broke his arm. Kern, a Wasp guy in the chat, is saying, where would you guys draft Watson in redraft?
You want to know Wilson, actually.
Oh, Wilson? I thought it says Watson.
And then there's a post right after it that says Wilson.
I am reading that as Watson. WTSON.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm reading it.
All right. I would not take him in the third round. Way too high. Deshaun Watson.
No, I'm sure not. I thought he.
He said Watson now. There you go.
All right. No,
I would not.
Third? I think he's going to go like in the 9th or 10th.
I don't think he goes that low. I do think he will be. We're talking about how Drew Brees went in the 7th round, and granted it was PBJ, but I think that's more of the sweet spot for Watson, maybe a little bit higher, especially if he's healthy coming into the season. All right. We are running out of time here, Dave. We got to get into these world-famous FFPC playoff challenge lineups. And I will say this. Last night, I was fortunate enough to hop on a Google on-air hangout with the Mans himself, Pete Manzanelli. You might know his alter ego, Peter Overzet, from rotoviz.com.
He's cool.
Contributor there. So I was on the air with Mans. We previewed the wild card weekend, and we actually submitted we didn't submit, but we put together an FFPC playoff lineup. I found out that after the fact that Mans gave that lineup to Peter Overzet, who actually submitted it in the FFPC playoff challenge. Great. He says if he wins the $100,000, he's coming to Wisconsin. We're gonna party it up.
But that would be fun.
That would be fun. We'll see what happens.
Cool.
So how do you want to do this? We switch up the format of this every year. Do you want to
just list off your quarterback? I'll list off my.
Got it. All right, we'll do that. So my quarterback. Wanted somebody that I felt pretty confident that was going to be scoring a lot of points in the Super Bowl. And I think of all the teams in the NFL right now, the team I'm most confident that will get to the Super Bowl, the New England Football Patriots. I went with Tom Brady.
Well, that's weird.
The maligned Tom Brady from this awful dreck that Seth Wickersham has posted on ESPN.com. Just another distraction that the Patriots are going to use for fuel as a fire. Brady's going to crush it. He's my quarterback.
Me too, actually.
Great. Okay.
Told you these lineups should be similar.
They're not. They might be similar.
Identical.
They will not be identical. There's no way.
So stupid.
You want to go with your number one running back then?
Sure, Todd Gurley. Oh, surprise! You have him too.
Yeah, I have him too. we talked about this on the Hangout last night. I'm not going to reveal our full lineup. There were some surprises on it, but
no one cares.
No, they do care. Gurley, I feel like is I mean, you've seen what wins this competition every year. Yeah. You look at that winning lineup.
Not take them, really.
Yeah, you look at that winning lineup, and it's like, oh, I can't believe something as chalky as that one. Well, it's not really a chalk lineup. There's just like one or two outliers, maybe two, sometimes just one.
If he sprains his ankle, then you have a good shot if you take like Cooper Kupp or something.
Right. Yeah. Malcolm Brown.
Right.
Right. Okay. So Gurley.
Oh, that's weird. So we're 2 for 2 so far.
All right.
I know we're not gonna match on all of them because I have an audible, so I can change.
Okay. Okay. Well, another one of my running backs. This team came down to the defense or the running back, and because of who the defense would be playing in round 2, I'm shying away from them, and I went with the guy who really is the engine of this offense, despite his ankle injury. I have Leonard Fournette as one of my running backs.
That's interesting. Leonard Fournette. I like that, actually. Good job.
Do you have him?
I do not have him. I have Le'Veon Bell.
Okay. I had Le'Veon Bell as well.
In the flex.
So, okay. So we both have Le'Veon Bell.
I do not have Fournette, though. So.
Let's talk about this Steelers discussion here for a little bit, because I feel like there's a lot to break down here.
I don't think so.
In Manz's lineup and Balky's, which, by the way, he was wearing his Man's hat, and I was wearing my Balky hat for it. It was a fantastic. Yeah, it was great.
Nice visual.
Yeah, it was a nice visual. I said this. Antonio Brown, if the Steelers are playing this weekend, Tomlin already said he would be listed as questionable. Okay? I am of the opinion that tearing this calf muscle is not something that what is he, 29, 30 now?
Sure.
I'm not of the opinion that this is something that you can recover from and all of a sudden be the player that you were in the prime of your career.
Right.
I'm not sure he's going to be 100% for the divisional round. In fact, I think there's a possibility he might miss. And you have to make this decision of what your lineup's going to be now, before Wild Card Weekend.
That many people you think are looking at Antonio Brown?
Let me just flesh out the whole discussion.
Please, flesh.
Okay. So you have Pittsburgh, who would, in the AFC Championship, Dave, in my opinion, meet the New England Patriots. What do the Patriots like to do on defense? Love to take away your best weapon. If Brown is hobbled,
it's obviously Le'Veon Bell.
Le'Veon Bell, okay? So now I think about, okay, well, if I'm not going to take Brown, what receiver could I take off this team that flawlessly performed with Ben Roethlisberger when Brown was out, that I think could use these playoffs as a stepping stone to a big-time breakout, and a guy that a lot of people might be saying after the Super Bowl is over, man, I wish I had Juju Smith-Schuster on my playoff lineup. So we included him on that.
That's interesting. Okay? I like Juju, actually.
So I actually went with Smith-Schuster on that team.
He's a fantastic Twitter follow, by the way.
Yeah, he is. But on this one, I went a little bit more chalky with Bell. Okay, so
that took a long time for you to say.
Yeah, so I have Brady, Bell, Fournette, Gurley so far. You have Brady, Bell, Gurley. Why don't you reveal? Do you want to reveal a Jaguar?
Jags, I took their defense.
Jags defense, okay.
Yep.
Which makes a lot of sense there. Okay. All right, my turn, and I will.
What do we have?
Let's go to the receiver. We can go over.
Great.
Let's go to the receiver.
Does our chat room still hear
Yeah,
us?
Wasp guy. We aimed for an optimal mix of chalk and novelty.
I like that.
Yeah, that is great. Chalk and novelty could be another name for this show. So you have the Kansas City Chiefs. We talked about this. I felt like the two guys that, first of all, I thought Kelsey and Hunt would be the guys that would be owned most for Kansas City. Tyreek Hill I thought was going to be overlooked. So I actually went with Tyreek Hill as my Chiefs representative here because of his big play potential, because he's sort of that guy that can really separate you from the field, especially if there's a lot of people going after Kelsey. And I thought there'd be a lot of people going after Kareem Hunt, especially how he came on at the end of the season. So I actually went with Tyreek Hill as one of my receivers here.
I like that. I like that pick, actually. Do you want me to give you my chief or my receiver?
Let's do your chief.
My chief is Travis Kelce at tight end.
Okay,
I agreed with Mr. Beers.
Okay.
And because I didn't pick Gronk, because I took Brady, I felt that at tight end, not that, I mean, there was obviously Ertz is out there at tight end as well.
Right.
He's a good choice. And even Rudolph, if you want to go that direction.
What about Greg Olsen? That's another guy,
He's
too.
another option, definitely at Carolina.
Kobe Fleener.
So anyway, so I took Kelsey, so I was pretty happy with Kelsey.
Okay, I like it, Travis Kelce. So as long as you're revealing your tight end, I did go, quote-unquote, chalk. I took Zach Ertz here.
That's not that chalky. It's actually probably the third most highly owned tight end, probably, maybe even fourth.
I think he might be the most owned tight end in this format.
Well,
who else are you going to own on Philadelphia?
Well, but I mean, regardless, so you have Kelsey and Gronk who are higher scoring tight ends.
That's fine.
And it is a tight end based.
But higher scoring or higher owned?
Well, both.
I think if you look, I don't know if we'll get the numbers, but I think if you look at what tight end, what tight end was owned the most in this format, it'll be Zach Ertz. I'm willing to put 5 on it.
So am I.
All right. So I got Zach Ertz being the number 1 tight end in this format.
I guess I'll take Field.
I mean, I guess, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's.
You know what? I'll take Gronk then.
No, that's stupid because you just said Kelce. You thought was going to be the. You know what I mean?
Kelsey or Gronk. But I mean, I think Kelsey.
Just take Field. It's going to be Kelsey or Gronk. It's not like you can have Olsen and Fleener and all those guys.
Well, I mean, you have Hill and Kelsey and
Hunt.
Kareem Hunt.
Yeah.
And anyone who's cool is taking Alex Smith, of course. He actually scores as much as Brady, if not more.
All right, so I got 5 on Ertz being the highest owned tight end.
I got 5 on it.
Only 419 playoff teams left there, Bucky.
419. Oh, so we just missed 420, huh? Too bad.
Yeah.
You got to be more on the ball. Let's get into Wasp Guy says in the chat room, how about a Zag receiver? Thielen? Anything you want to comment on about that?
Oh, yeah, I own Thielen.
All right, there you go. So Dave has Adam Thielen.
I figure it's good luck to have like a white wide receiver. You know, it's like your lucky rabbit's foot.
It makes
rare.
sense.
They're like a 4-leaf clover. You just never see it.
The winning playoff challenge team last year.
Cooper Kupp actually is quite
the
good.
Winning playoff challenge team last year. Julian Edelman was on that team.
Hey, man.
So there you go.
It just goes to show.
Yeah.
Anyone can do anything.
So you have Thielen. I guess I will reveal my Viking, and it is the Vikings. I have the Vikings defense,
right.
and here's my reasoning behind that. You have a wide open NFC. Okay, the top seed is going to be quarterbacked by Nick Foles. You have the number 3 seed quarterback by, granted, a talented guy, but a guy that's not really been counted on to win games, and a guy who is still in his second year in the league. Well, I mean, Gurley was really the engine that drove that train, all season.
Yeah, you can. I don't know.
I don't want to say Goff sucked because he definitely
he didn't throw a lot of red zone touchdowns.
Right.
But he was really pretty darn good all season.
He was not bad. He's Pro Bowler, right?
Hey, when you hand it off to Gurley and he scores like 80% of the time, it doesn't make a lot of sense to throw from the 2 like Brett Favre and Rodgers seem to do every single play.
Or Russell Wilson throwing to Ricardo Lockett.
Yeah.
Hey-o.
Don't give it to Lynch.
Yeah. I wonder how many teams how many players name their teams don't give it to Lynch the following year after that. So anyway, and to sum up my Vikings thoughts, I think back it's that Peyton Manning Seattle Seahawks Super Bowl from 3 years ago, wherever it was, and the guy who won the whole thing rode that Seattle defense all the way and got the double points in the Super Bowl because Minnesota will be playing on their home field if they get to the Super Bowl. Double points to that defense.
It's actually really good thinking in spite of your cheesy little sound effect.
You know what? I'll take it. All right, so we have...
I need another wide receiver.
Go ahead. And you reveal your receiver, and then I'll reveal mine.
I'm going with the Tequila Don Julio.
Oh, my gosh. I can't...
I hate him.
What?
I hate him.
What is this? What? I'm speechless.
But I couldn't take a crappy Buffalo Bill or a crappy Titan, so it forced me to take an Atlanta Falcon, which forced me to I'm not going to take Freeman, Coleman, Matt Ryan. He's too dorky and skinny, and Hooper sucks. So obviously I'm taking Don Julio.
Okay, so I mean you understand you could have just avoided the Falcons in general. They're like a touchdown dog at Los Angeles.
Yeah, but I still would have to then You have to take 10 teams,
Yeah, 10 players.
10 players from 10 teams.
Yeah.
So if I ignore Atlanta, I have to take a Bill or a Titan.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Which Bill or Titan did you take, Baltimore?
I will get to it in a second. For anybody listening to this podcast right now, go ahead and rewind roughly 28 minutes and 42 seconds when Dave was ripping on Julio Jones to Mike Beers, saying like, "Oh, the Julio effect. Yeah, they don't throw to him in the red zone. Whatever, blah blah blah." And by the way, he's on my team. So that you have Julio Jones. Okay.
I have no defense for that, Your Honor.
All right, I'll reveal my Titan. It was partially because I think that the fact that I won the Kentucky auction, well, not I, but Kurt basically won it, and I just pitched in. Our kicker on that team was Ryan Suckup, so I'm like, let's roll with Suckup, baby. Let's keep this mojo going. And I'll say this, Dave, Brad Cruz took second place in that Kentucky auction to us this year. Okay.
Yes.
He also won the $2,500 auction in the FFPC, and he won the Super Bracket in the FFPC.
Wow.
Ryan Suckup slayed that giant. He's going to be slaying giants.
That's great.
On this FFPC challenge roster. So Suckup is my kicker.
I like that, actually.
Well, I'm glad to get the Gerzak stamp of approval.
Too shoddy.
What do you want to do next year?
I'm left with 3 players. I'll do my kicker. I took Jake Elliott from the Schmiegs.
Okay.
I think the Schmiegos are going to get upset, so I'm taking a kicker that's like a throwaway position.
That's interesting.
Kind of like a pawn on the chessboard.
So they be playing New Orleans? I kind of like that.
Who cares? Full sucks. He's not that good. The team itself, minus the starting quarterback, is just not that good. Yeah. So forget it.
So you
talk. You're no good.
Right. So if they are getting upset, I believe that they would just play the lower seed of whoever advances, be it Atlanta or Carolina or New Orleans. And I am actually liking the Saints this year, Dave. I think they could make some noise, so I had to have a Saint in my lineup. I already have Brady in my quarterbacks. I couldn't do Breeze. And everybody and their mother is going to have Camaro. And everybody else is going to have Ingram. So I went with another Kentucky auction ring holder this year, Michael Thomas, rolling that swag all the way to $100,000. I mean, not that we're playing in it, but that's why I chose Michael Thomas here for my receiver. I think that's a little bit of contrarian play, and he's been money pretty much all season. And I think I said this on the Fantasy Alarm Show on Thursday. I think that Carolina-New Orleans game is going to be the highest scoring, most entertaining, most fun game to watch all weekend. I said that one of my bold predictions were that Breeze and Newton combined for 8 touchdowns on that in that game. So I wanted to get a piece of that. I think Michael Thomas does very well in that game. I think he does very well in the divisional playoffs as well, and he might get to that NFC title game as well. So Michael Thomas is what I have. And two-packer, upset that he has to change his lineup because he not only had Jake Elliott, he also had Michael Thomas. He has to get rid of both those guys.
Whatever.
You can just flip them. Get the Saints kicker and Alshon Jeffrey.
So we're into the flex position. I'm going to go with Ingram, actually.
Okay.
And it's a little bit contrarian to Kamara. He actually was only outscored by him by about 17 points on the season.
Right.
And
seems like more, though, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. It seems like more, but it's really not that much. So it's 1 point per game. And I would say there's probably a 40% chance that Ingram outscores him. And I think there's probably much more likely of a chance that people are going to be owning Alvin Kamara, whatever, tomorrow.
Just call him one name. You don't have to call him Kamara. Let's call the whole thing
All right,
off.
so I'm left with one position.
So am I. Who's revealing here first?
You can go first.
You want to tell me what team your guy is on? This is a flex, right?
Yep. Mine is on Carolina.
Mine is also on Carolina.
Mine was running back number 8 as a rookie, and everybody seems to be down on him.
Damn it. We have the same Panther.
C-Mac, baby. Christian
McCaffrey is rounding out our lineup.
Because they're an underdog in the game. I think McCaffrey gets a lot of targets and a lot of catches.
Devin Funchess, questionable.
And he sucks kind of still.
Greg Olsen had that big game against the Packers, has not done much since. And we both already had quarterbacks, so it made sense that. So just a recap of our lineups here, Dave. We both have.
You know what would be a real big sleeper would be Jonathan Stewart, actually.
I was thinking about that, and this is the point I wanted to bring up when we were talking to Mike Beers. Drafting these best ball 1A guys like Jonathan Stewart, like Matt Forte, you know that they're going to have those weeks where they have like these 2 or 3 touchdown weeks. Stewart might have one of those games in the playoffs too. I mean, we'll see what happens, but the way that I'm just projecting this, I think it's going to be a shootout for Carolina and New Orleans. So that's why I wanted to make sure I get McCaffrey on this.
Stewart only outscored McCaffrey, I think, 1 game in the last 7 or 8 games, so probably not that good of a move.
Okay. Well,
I'm just throwing $200 away.
Wasp guy, before we get to our lineup recap, bold prediction from each of you about playoff fantasy football players. I'll say this. I already mentioned the Cam Newton, Drew Brees combining for 8 touchdowns thing. I'll say that I think Juju Smith-Schuster is the leading receiver for the Steelers in the playoffs. And I also said Derrick Henry, 130 total yards and 2 touchdowns in the divisional playoff or wild card playoff tomorrow. Those are my 3.
I would say that Cooper Kupp actually has probably a 20% chance to outscore Gurley, and then they lose. So there's a chance that Gurley, maybe Kupp gets a couple touchdowns. This does happen occasionally where they go 7 for 70 and 2 touchdowns. For some reason, Gurley, who scored 45 in weeks 15 and 16, doesn't get in the end zone. And then they lose the next week, and the Kupp ends up outscoring him. And anyone, the 10% of people that had Kupp actually get that W.
No, that's bold, and I get it. Just to recap our lineups here, Dave. Last year when we did this exercise, we only differed on 2 players. This year, we're only similar on 4 players.
Perfect. This is nice.
So we both have Brady, Bell, Gurley, and McCaffrey. So, and then your other guys are Mark Ingram, Adam Thielen, Julio Jones, Travis Kelce, Jake Elliott, Jacksonville's defense. My other guys, Leonard Fournette, Tyreek Hill, Michael Thomas, Zach Ertz, Ryan Suckup, and the Minnesota Vikings.
This is really interesting.
It's a little sacrilegious for me to have Tyreek Hill on a team and you not have him.
It's all right. I got McCaffrey. I'm all right. I'll survive.
Yeah, just picking up all your dynasty guys. That's how it worked out.
I have Kelce on a few dynasty teams.
Okay. So hopefully we help people out. Do we have a tally of how many teams are left? Are we under the 400 mark yet?
412 right now.
412. Okay. So the time is running out. I want to encourage everybody to once we're done with this podcast, which we're going to be done in about 2 minutes, set your lineup, get your team, set your lineup. You can always modify them up until playoff time. And we just gave you 2 free lineups, which is how much we love you on this show.
All I have to say is the playoffs kind of are boring if you don't have some sort of thing going on.
Yeah, like the world famous FFPC playoff challenge. So that is going to do it for tonight's show, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank Mike Beers. Follow him on Twitter @BeersWater. Check out all of his work at RotoGrinders, rotoviz.com, and watch him on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour this summer defend his Pros versus Joes title. Thank the FFPC, Dave Gerzak, Rob, Bryce, and, of course, each and every one of you for listening all season long, all year long, really. And good luck to everybody in the playoff challenge this week. We are back next week, 10/9 Central. Big show, Dave.
Yeah.
FFPC main event champions. The $250,000 winners, Greg and David Zwickel, will be on the show next week.
I'm really looking forward to meeting those 2 gentlemen.
Yeah, we will virtually meet them through the magic of Skype. But they will be on the show next week. Don't miss that one. Pick up some new dynasties. Remember to do that. We're going to go a little bit more than 2 minutes. There's 2 emails I wanted to read real quick.
Okay.
They're important.
This is bonus time?
Bonus time.
This is like the extra song on the CD.
This is the outro. Zach Giraz got an email. I saved these 2 emails. I got them shortly after Week 16. I saved them because I want to read them while you were on the air. Zach Giraz, he won the Bare Knuckles Challenge this year with Shane Gray.
Nice.
Get an email shortly after.
Stuck on an elevator with these guys.
Shortly thereafter, after Week 16 ends, the final game, I get an email. Hey, Bare Knuckles, baby. Tonight, the Johnny Walker Blue flows like the salmon of Capistrano. Might have been inebriated when he said that. But it was great.
Nice.
Final email tonight. Andy.
That's awesome.
Andy from Freaks of the Industry in Carrington League. Just finished the podcast this AM and laughed about your trade embargo. Might I remind you,
that's funny.
Todd Gurley is on your roster as a result of a trade with me. I don't recall the details of my return other than Kevin White is who I took with the 104.
Oh, awesome.
I will say this.
So naughty. Oh, sucks.
I will say this. Yeah, I did get the better end of that deal. That was one I really got the better end of.
Wow.
And he ended up he got two other first rounders from me. He took Kevin White, Dorial Green-Beckham, and then it was like another bad running back, like a P. Ryan type, but it wasn't P. Ryan.
Yeah, it just shows you how those first rounders can turn to pot quickly.
So then
that's a good pot.
He decides
the Jeff Sessions band pot.
So then he decides to double down on it. He's like, I also remember the Hyde Coates for Murray Washington deal. Did I get okay? So that was he totally got the better end of that.
What was it?
I mean there was
DeMarco Murray.
No.
Oh.
There was like
Davius Murray and Washington
for
Hyde.
We each
you all got the
hold on, just let me get this out.
Go ahead.
We had there was one extra piece we each sent in, and it was irrelevant, but it ended up being Carlos Hyde and Sammy Coates for DeAndre Washington and Latavius Murray.
Right. So you all got the ass end of that deal.
I would have rather had Hyde.
All four of those guys are terrible.
If he let me, I would do trade backs right now, and I would take Hyde off his hands.
Well, you can take a 9th round pick. Congratulations, you get him back.
He also said,
Hyde sucks.
Did I get a 2nd round from you for Bryant? Okay, we're not bringing Martavis Bryant into this because clearly you got the better end of that.
That's pretty funny.
He says, am I missing any others? No, you are not. He says, on another note, this championship game screams Watkins for 75 points and a win. Only thing more defeating for Dave would be if Watkins did it on a, quote, pitch count. Have a Merry Christmas. That's Andy Freaks of the Industry. He ended up beating
And he won.
He won, yeah. It was
Nice job.
his team was, he had a good team, and it performed very, very well the last 3 weeks
And
of
he's
the
a
season.
good guy, too. I like him.
He's a great guy. And in that spirit, Dave,
Yes.
because he's such a great guy,
Yeah.
and pointed out to me that I actually got the better end of that Todd Gurley deal. Gurley now the centerpiece of my Carrington roster.
Yeah.
He is lifted from the trade embargo from Blake Carrington for me. No longer, he's the only team I will trade with going forward in that league.
Oh, come on.
He is lifted. The rest of you all are Cuba, the Soviet Union, everything else. I don't want to hear it.
You're the worst. He's like Israel in the United States. That's it, right?
That's exactly what it is. We moved the capital for Freaks of the
I
Industry.
feel like I run Venezuela now.
Yeah, well, listen, you can run whatever you want, but
I'm introducing my own cryptocurrency based on my oil reserves.
well, you will not be introducing any of my players onto your roster this year because I'm lifting the embargo for one team.
Well, good for you.
Freaks of the Industry, you won Carrington, and now you're winning my heart.
That's pretty good.
Hi, it's Jamie, Progressive's Employee of the Month, 2 months in a row. Leave a message at the... Hi, Jamie. It's me, Jamie. I just had a new idea for our song about the Name Your Price tool. So when it's like, tell us what you want to pay, hey, 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 and the trombone goes, blah, 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 and you say, we'll help you find coverage options to fit your budget. Then we just all do finger snaps while a choir goes, savings coming at ya, savings coming at ya. Yes? No? Maybe? Anyway, see your practice tonight. I got new lyrics for the rap break.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.